Seven.
7,000,000.
7 new.
7.
7. 7. 7.
7 Point Highlander.
Hello and welcome to 7 Point Cast. My name is Liam and I'm joined by my co-host Mouse.
Hey, it's glad to be back after a bit of a spout of absence.
Yes, it is. Today is the first recording we're doing after CanCon, and we're being rejoined by one of the first people who we did a recording with, so it's only fitting they're one of the first people who come back. Maxwell Ashurst, how you going?
Oh, I'm super keen to be here. These are always a blast. You guys are doing a great job with these. It's super fun to listen back to them, and I'm glad I can be part of it.
You're always welcome on the pod, especially after coming off a CanCon Top8 finish after going undefeated and then IDing into the finals. Before we get into the deck list that you played, can you just give us a bit of an overview of your CanCon experience and how you approached it and what was different from this year versus last year?
And before you do that, I just want to note that Liam's choice of how to get more professional is, instead of increasing the sound quality, is to start self-referencing ourselves as the pod. You know, this is how you can tell we're becoming an established podcast.
Did I say that in the Facebook chat? Did I?
I don't know. It was the fact. No. Just now you were like coming on the pod. I'm like, oh my god, what are we? Are we like, you know? I forget. There's some podcasts which will call themselves the pod, I'm sure.
Oh, that's
like
embarrassing. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. But now onto the important stuff. Max, tell us about it.
Yeah, so going into CanCon, I've been playing these kind of artifact combo lists for a while. I was on a list called Key and Wheel, which I talked about last time for a while, that kind of is a Tolarian Academy, Fast One Crucible, all of the wheels, so your Time Twisters and Echo of Aeons, to just kind of churn through your deck really quickly and kill your opponent. It gained a couple of points with the necessary storm pointing in the form of Tezzeret and Mana Vault, which were both necessary for the deck. And I found that it was too hard to kind of juggle points in my Key and Wheel deck. I probably have to cut Time Twister or something. I really don't want to. So I switched over to Zirda. Zirda the Dawnwaker, which is a really sweet card. I'm sure we'll see some of the list in a sec. But that deck also cops 2 points in the same form of Tezzeret and Mana Vault, but there were kind of a couple of extra points that I didn't really think I needed, so it felt like it was better positioned. I also found this deck... Oh, what did I cut? I cut Ancient Tomb and Enlightened Tutor,
Right.
which, you know, they're both reasonable cards in the deck. Ancient Tomb was really, really good. Enlightened Tutor was just alright. But,
I was saying, you might have been the last person alive to be paying a point for Enlightened Tutor, so...
yeah, that card is not worth a point, unfortunately. But yeah. And it felt reasonably well positioned. I actually thought my Grixis matchup was really, really good. I think we have seen a bit of a drop in the play rate of Grixis, and you know that can be seen in people like Juzzle leaving up Thoracle, which I think has a really bad Grixis matchup, but deciding that there would be less Grixis in the room, so it's worth playing that list. But even so, you know, people are going to play Grixis. It's powerful strategy. You know, all the best one drops are still good, and I thought that this was better wheels against the field.
Yeah, it's funny that I definitely saw, like, you know, I definitely saw Grixis there. It had a presence, and it wasn't. It's not like it did terribly either. Like, I think Jack just missed out on breakers, right? And
Simon was my round one opponent in the quarters, so there was a Grixis deck in the top 8.
Oh, okay, right. So yeah, like there's still there was still definitely a solid Grixis presence, but it seems to have not had this. Well, yeah, we at least initially, we'll see how the meta shakes out. That it's just become a player rather than, you know, like the default thing to beat.
Yeah. I thought it would be higher, to be honest, because Moonshadow is like a really cool card on that list. I think it's extremely strong. And I thought people would migrate to it because of that, but slightly less than I thought, but still enough that the deck was good.
Well, cool. Do we just want to get cracking talking about the list, you know, like how does it work? Like what is the goal? Like, you know, it's a giant pile of artifacts, most of which cost 0 or 1. But realistically, you know, is this a deck which has lots of different combo lines? Does it really just have one which you're trying to get every time? Like, you know, what do the wins look like?
Yeah, so I'd describe this as an all-in combo deck. Last time I talked a little bit about hybrid versus all-in. This is definitely all-in, like there's no plan B. Yeah. 99% of games, you tutor out Grim Monolith or Basalt Monolith as fast as possible. These are both artifacts that tap for 3 mana, and you can spend either 3 or 4 mana to untap them. Then you add Zirda to your hand, normally by tapping the Monolith. cast your Zirda. Finding double white is a little bit tricky, so that's kind of the hard step in the combo, but you cast your Zirda. And then what you can do is, depending on how much open mana you have, you can put several untapped triggers onto the stack, noting that Zirda reduces the untapped costs of both monoliths. And then as soon as one of them resolves, you can then tap it for mana, untap it, tap it for mana. And the really neat thing about this is, even though it plays a creature as like the core part of the combo, if you have, say, a Basalt Monolith out, which taps for 3 and untaps for 3, so untaps for 1 with Zirda out, the amount of open mana you have when you play Zirda, your opponent needs that many removal spells +1 to basically be able to beat your untap, because you play Zirda, you go put an untapped trigger of Monolith on the stack, they go like, swords your Zirda. I go, I'll respond, I'll put an untapped trigger of Monolith on the stack. They go, blue blast your Zirda. I'll put another untapped trigger. And eventually, when they run out of removal, you just let the first untap resolve make infinite mana, let the removal resolve on Zirda, but you've already got infinite mana, so it's too late.
Okay, fair enough. And so, is that like, did you have many people just kind of, go, oh no, like, does that catch people out, or is it one of those things where people are like, everyone knows that it's there. You just wait till you have enough untapped mana to source I guess the maximum amount of perceived removal spells you think they could have.
Yeah, a little bit. It sometimes catches people out. I mean, once they see it the first time, it makes sense. A lot of things that do catch people out is not really realizing just how many things Zirda can reduce. Like, there's a bunch of cards in this deck that are like really surprising that Zirda can go down on. Like Candelabra of Tornos, you can untap 3 lands for 1 mana. All of your like Expedition and World Map stuff gets cheaper. You can do stuff like channel Moonsnare Prototype for 3 mana. You can channel Otawara for a single blue while Zirda is out, because it's a legendary creature, so you get a triple cost reduction on that, which is pretty sick. So, like, people get surprised. Like, you can spin Urza for 3 mana. It's 2 mana to put a counter on Ballista. Like, there's all of these surprising things where it's like, oh, you can go crazy with this. Inventor's Fair only costs 2 to crack.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one that gets people. And of course, the kill once you have infinite mana. Sorry, just to
that's what I was going to say. You've got your infinite mana. What next? Yeah.
It's to find Walking Ballista, and there's tons of lines that get Walking Ballista into your hand. Stuff like you can Tezzeret for it. You can use World Map or Expedition Map to find either Teleria West or Inventor's Fair, and then either Crack Fair or Transmute Teleria West for it, depending on if you have a land drop available or if you have blue mana available. So there's there's lots of ways to get Ballista really easily. Urza also wins the game once you have infinite mana. That one's a little more complicated because unfortunately it exiles a Ballista and you have to cast it X equals 0, so it ends up in your graveyard. So you then need to like Abstergo Entertainment it back, or Khan find Tormod's Crypt, bounce your Khan, exile your Ballista with Crypt, and then get it back with Khan, which is a bit longer of a line, but all of these eventually lead to Ballista.
Yeah, okay, right. So there's, and besides Ballista, there's really nothing. Like, there's not another way to die. I mean, to kill them.
No. You can Khan Lattice people. That's generally good enough once you've wiped their board. But okay. Almost all of my games ended with a Ballista kill. Unfortunately, I've played a lot of like really questionable win conditions, but I think Ballista is actually necessary in this list just because you generate so much mana so often. You need a way to just say, let's end the game right now.
Is there any merit to putting a mana outlet in the sideboard that you can just always grab off Khan rather than going through that extended loop?
So Staff of Domination is actually that card. So Staff of Domination is in the board. I will never bring it in any matchup. It's purely there for Khan to grab the staff, to then draw into the Ballista. I was thinking about playing some fun cards like Aladdin's Lamp in that slot because it does the same thing, but Staff actually has real text against some decks, so...
Aladdin's Lamp? What on earth? Oh god, I go to Google the card and of course I just get like the actual kid's Aladdin's Lamp image.
Yeah, it's like a 10 mana artifact where you can like pay X and look at the top X cards of your library and put one of them into your hand, or that type of thing. It's really bad unless you have infinite mana, and then it's like just barely possible.
It's actually
it's really funny to kill people with it.
The image here is 5 and 5.
Yeah. It's not 55 mana, it is 10.
Right, okay. And like, here's a question for the really vintage, not vintage is the wrong word because it's its own format identity. Like, look, let's just say boomer, okay? Like for the really old school, This has also now got its own format name. Just for basically, I'm talking about people who've been playing Magic for a long time. The combo, I believe, before you cool new kids started playing with Basil, used to be Power Artifact, right? And that would also go infinite with the Basalt Monolith and the Grim Monolith. And it would also, I believe, does it go infinite with Staff, or is it just at least very good with Staff?
Oh,
Um,
it's just good, I think.
yeah,
I think you can't go below 1 with Power Artifact. Apologies if I'm wrong. I actually have never cast that card, so I
Well,
could
I
be
mean, now that I'm asking the question, why not? Like it seems like it has a perfect crossover with everything in your deck. I suppose, yeah. So it's like a blue for an enchantment, and
yeah.
it just basically puts Zerda's cost reduction on a card.
Yeah, totally. So you have to be super careful with Zerda in that there are a bunch of cards that you think you can play, in fact, cards that have the word activated ability on them and don't actually fit. So Power
Ah,
Artifact is an example of a permanent with no activated ability, even though it refers to activated abilities on its card. So you may not
right.
companion Zerda with it. And I actually think companioning Zerda is low-key an extremely important part of this deck. This is a deck that goes really, really low on resources in terms of cards in hand really fast. Like the deck has a lot of artifact acceleration, and it plays things like balance, which is meant to just stone age both you and your opponent. And we can talk about balance in a bit, but it has a lot of really cool applications. And having access to Zerda in your companion zone in this type of deck is super important because you have this mana outlet at all times. It means you can go really high on your mana producing count and play stuff like Pentad Prism and Moonsnare Prototype and Jeweled Amulet and a bunch of these cards that are zeros, but they sometimes produce mana because you always have a way of spending excess mana in the form of Zerda. So
Okay.
yeah, Zerda is really, really integral to this strategy for sure.
I mean, look, one of the last questions I have just before I throw to Liam is you just pointed out, Power Artifact, that's all well and good, but all the cards have to have activated abilities. What are like the cards which you most desperately wanted to play but couldn't because they didn't have the activated abilities?
Yeah, for sure. I've actually got a list of cards that I wish I could play. Probably in terms of like most punishing to least. Portable Hole, which is a 1-drop removal spell that you can get off Tezzeret. It's also an artifact, like really, really strong. Urza's Saga hurts a huge amount. This gives you a lot of game against decks like Grixis and Moons because you can just spew out constructs and beat control. It also gets you your Mana Vault, which is important.
That one's
Rings of
crazy though as well because like of all the cards which you feel will have an activated ability, like the activated ability is printed right there, but the technicality is that it gains the ability, it doesn't have the ability, right?
Yeah, correct. Statically, it has no abilities by itself, which is so sad. When they were announcing the Saga rules change, I was like, oh my god, can I finally run this card? No, it just works until Blood Moon. Oh.
Yeah.
Real shame. Rings of Brighthearth and Forensic Gadgeteer are also cards that reference activated abilities multiple times in their text box but do not have them themselves and would be extremely good in this list. That would just enable a huge amount of combos. Trinket and Tribute Mage are creatures that fetch 1 and 2 drop artifacts respectively, and unfortunately they don't have activated abilities, so you can't play them. And then there's just a long list of cards which are kind of like alternate game plans which are good, like Thundertrap Trainer, Paradox Engine, Pinnacle Emissary, Iron Man, Kappa Cannoneer, the Fastbond Crucible combo, because you can't play Fastbond or Crucible. I think there are some Crucibles that are activated, like Conduit of Worlds, but not being able to play Fastbond kills that combo dead. You can't play Hullbreacher, so wheels become a lot less good, and you unfortunately can't play Painter's Servant, so the Painter's Grindstone combo is also not available to you. And then also in the sideboard, cards that I've really missed are Defense Grid and Leyline of Sanctity. I've been super high on Leyline of Sanctity lately. I'm actually playing at main deck in Keen Wheel at the moment because there's a lot of black-based hand disruption that happens, and it also like randomly destroys Storm, which is pretty funny. But you can't play Defense Grid or Leyline, so my kind of Defense Grid slot is Teferi Time Raveler, but I'd probably play more of those. Cards like City of Solitude and the 2-drop Mobilize guy, Voice of Victory, I think it is,
Yep.
that do similar things. Yeah, you can't play those, unfortunately.
Liam, what's tickling your curiosity in this one?
Well, look, it sounds like you have a really strong handle on the rules text of Zerda and whether or not you're going to make a mistake in the deck building. So I wonder, are there any other areas of this deck that players might get caught up with trying to pilot it?
Well, so I do actually want to give an honorable mention to Perilous Snare, which is a stupid speed card from Aetherdrift that I was actually playing in this at several weekly events. I don't think I played it in any major tournaments, but I probably played it in Cambrawl, which is really funny because it's not legal with Zirda, unfortunately, despite having an activated ability printed on the card. I believe the permanent only gains the activated ability at max speed, which is really bizarre. So I've cut that for Aang's Iceberg, which has actually been a lot better. But in terms of play mistakes, I want to highlight the card Manifold Key, which looks very similar to Voltaic Key. So Voltaic Key is an artifact for one colorless. It has the activated ability one tap, untap target artifact. Very strong on this list. You can untap your monoliths to make a bunch of mana. You can untap your Candelabra and then some lands. You can untap your ring and draw a billion cards. It's really, really good. And so I played Manifold Key as a functional reprint of it. It has a text one tap, untap another target artifact, and also an ability to make something unblockable, which sometimes comes up when you accidentally kill your opponent with an Urza construct. But unfortunately, Manifold Key's ability is slightly different from Voltaic Key, and I made this mistake during CanCon on camera once and in the quarterfinals.
Perfect timing, of course, to make a.
Oh, yeah.
embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. I just assume the abilities have the same rules text, but the word another pulls a lot of heavy weight. So I play a card in this deck called Enigma Jewel. You don't really have to worry too much about it, but it's got a super expensive flip, and when it flips, it turns into an artifact with the text. Whenever you activate an ability copy, you may choose new targets for the copy. I'd only added this card like fairly late into testing after seeing it in I think it was. Is it Ben Simmons, perhaps, plays a Paradox Academy deck?
He used to, yeah.
Yeah,
Although it's
yeah.
funny when you were listing all the cards which like you couldn't play. I'm like, oh yeah, these are the cards which Ben plays. Like, the
Totally,
Paradox Edge, the End Stone, like all those ones. I'm like, right, this is why this list is different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does play quite differently to those traditional Academy decks. But anyway, Ben put me onto this card, and it's been insane, like truly busted. But I hadn't tested with it a lot, and I realized late in the piece, it's like I worked out the normal things, like with a Basalt Monolith and a flipped Enigma Jewel, you can go tap Monolith for mana, activate its untap ability, Jewel copies the untap, you let the first untap resolve, tap it for mana, let the second untap resolve, and that gives you infinite mana. But I'd realized fairly late in the piece that if you have a Voltaic Key out and a Mana Rock, you can go activate Voltaic Key, Enigma Jewel copies it, you go the copy on your Mana Rock, the original on your Voltaic Key, tap your Mana Rock for mana, and they both untap. And so if your Rock taps for 2 or more mana, you get infinite mana this way. And I was like, okay, sweet. So you can Mana Vault, make infinite mana, go off. It's really strong. And then if you have a ring, after you've made infinite mana, you can go draw cards with ring, key my ring and itself, untap both, draw cards with ring again, and you can draw your deck that way. So it's quite a tight little package. But unfortunately, Manifold Key reads another, and even if you copy the ability with Enigma Jewel, the source remains the same, so you still cannot target Manifold Key with its own ability, even with the copy. And I did this on camera against Dylan, you can watch the game back. I believe I had an alternate way of winning that game, thank goodness, but lots of GRVs were committed on camera. Which is not great. And then in the quarterfinals, I went Manifold Key itself and Ring, draw 13 cards off my Ring, because Enigma Jewel also copies its ability, and then try to Manifold Key in my Mana Vault, and that's when a spectator noticed. So we had maybe a 20-minute judge call where we had to unwind drawing 13 cards off a Ring to go back to when the board state was legal again, which was not very pleasant. So be very careful with Manifold Key. It has text.
Outrageous.
Well, that is some crazy stuff. I mean, so the next class of questions I kind of have is just trying to interrogate some of the why are these cards in and why aren't these cards in type questions. So you've got a few cards which I feel like when the stats come out, they're going to have the obnoxiously higher win rate because no one else is playing them. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, for sure.
And
it's always nice to see some of this. I think I'm propping up Search for Glory for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say Search for Glory is one of them. Balance is probably one of them, but maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about that. But another one is definitely Soul Partition and Moon Silver Key, and also in the sideboard these you know, why aren't I playing mono white aggro like Search of Salvation and Dawn's Truce cards? Like these ones all kind of seem quite unique to this deck, and maybe you want to speak to like how yeah what their role is.
Yeah, definitely. So how about we start with balance? Because like there's a lot of really interesting things about this card. This is probably my favorite Magic the Gathering card ever printed. It's really, really cool. So just in case people haven't experienced the joy of balance, it basically means when you cast it, the person with the most lands sacrifices down to have the same as the player with the least. Then you discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way. Just in terms of the resolution of this spell, the order is lands, cards, creatures. It's one that I have memorized. It rarely actually matters the order, but there's stuff like you choose the cards that you discard before they sacrifice the creatures comes up a lot in Control. So for example, if you have like a creature out, they can kind of like respond to what removal you discard to work out what they keep. So there's a little bit of things, or like say they discard all their red lands, you can freely discard your blue blasts. Because it goes lands then cards in hand. So that's a minor point. But this is a really interesting card because it is symmetrical. So you have to be a deck that can break the symmetry on this card to take advantage of it, and it is a point in this format. I also strongly believe it should remain a point. There are people in the Discord that often say, you know, we should depoint balance. Not many people are playing this. Give control a bone. It's actually really unfair in combo decks that don't play many creatures, and I think Storm would snap sideboard this at 0 points and become a much stronger deck because of it. So I think 1 point is a really fair spot for this.
I think that is the committee's standing reasoning for not depointing the card. They're like it's like every combo that one's white, although we usually go to Breach rather than Storm, we just put this on the sideboard.
Yeah, it's really, really obnoxious in combo because they're good at breaking the parity. So the first way to break parity on this is creatures is probably the most important and upfront type. This is a one-sided border wipe if you don't run creatures. This deck plays a couple of creatures, but they are creatures that come down after balance, which is really important. And Zirda also living in the companion zone means that you can always fetch it post-balance. So this is a deck that really abuses that like creature symmetry. And control often leans on that as the way that it breaks parity. So your 0 creature, no win condition control decks that just play balance as a board wipe is pretty reasonable. But the other really crucial thing about balance is it's all the playing pieces, right? You're losing your creatures, your cards in hand, and your lands. And normally, like, that's a 1-for-1 exchange. So you need a way of kind of playing types of cards that get around this 1-for-1. Because playing a control deck that just goes like land go, balance, you're going to discard almost your whole hand, which is really tough. So the most obvious ways of getting around this are playing types that it doesn't hit, which are Artifact, Planeswalker, Enchantments, and I guess like Battles if you really want. But those are the main ones. And this is an artifact-based deck, so it makes a lot of sense. You just deploy all your artifacts and then you go balance, and every artifact that you've played is functionally stripping away another playing piece from your opponent.
Yeah, whether it be like, it's probably most likely a card in hand.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that's really important with balance is you need to think about the velocity of the cards you're playing. I've seen control decks that just play a bunch of Planeswalkers and then balance, and that's not actually that strong, because by the time that you've deployed the Planeswalkers, your opponent's probably emptied their hand of cards, and then your balance, like, you're not actually breaking the symmetry anymore. Like, you're killing their board and their creatures, but you're going to go down on your cards, and it's just not that good. But when you go like, you know, Opal, Mana Vault, Chrome Mox, Balance on like turn 2 of the game, it's complete destruction. Like it's just a completely different game. And I had a really good game in the Swiss where I went a turn 2 balance with no lands and play no cards in hand against my tokens opponent, and it's very, very hard to lose from that spot just because.
Oh, I think that might have been you. I think in one of the group chats I was involved, somebody did say like, you know, bro, I just got balanced on turn 2 and I lost everything. And they're like,
Yeah.
Land,
That
creatures,
one's not normal,
cards
but...
in hand, and then all caps, everything, you know?
Yeah, that was pretty gross. The other cool thing about balance, and you might be familiar with this if you've played a lot of Echo of Aeons decks, particularly in Legacy, is it just unmulligans you immediately. Like, you can keep a hand which is Mox Opal land balance. Sorry, not Mox Opal. That one doesn't work very well. But like Lotus Petal land balance. And that's like totally serviceable. You're both going to be top decking and you have a companion. Like this is a good hand. So it has that Echo of Aeons effect where you have this card in your deck where you can just like hit the mulligan button over and over again, which is really important when you're playing combo.
All right, now challenge. Give us the same detailed essay about the snow tutoring card. What I can't remember what it's called.
Just really quickly with balance as well. There are a couple of cards that go down two pieces at once. So, Chrome Mox, Mox Diamond, Gemstone Cavern are really good with it because you lose two pieces. And then stuff that let you bank cards like Baubles and the World Map and the Expedition Map are also great because you can kind of leave them on the battlefield, balance, and then crack them to get the cards back. And Mystical Tutor is a really good card of balance because you go down a card. I would like to highlight that what's the stupid creature that gets a spell with CMC2 or less? Spellseeker.
Elf Guide.
Spellseeker, yeah. Spellseeker for balance sounds good on
Sky,
paper.
Did you just say that, man?
Yeah, so I've got Spellscite on the mind. I'm staring at a list of cards where I'm like, ask Max about this, and Spellscite's top of the list. So yeah,
Yeah.
Spellseeker.
So yeah, Spellseeker balance is a little bit. It sounds good on paper because you're getting a really powerful spell off your Spellseeker, a pointed spell. But the problem is you're almost guaranteed to have a creature in play when you cast your balance, and they get to keep their best creature when you do that. So that one's kind of awkward. I have tried to make that work, but I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah,
Do you ever do it with like the Teferi uptick, like in their draw?
Yeah. I was also going to say you can superpower your balance by playing combinations of Teferi, Zeranorb, and LED. These let you basically like strip away one of your zones immediately, and Teferi is just like a gross card because you can do stuff like crack fetches while your fetch triggers are on the stack balance, and then the balance resolves. It sees you have less lands in play, and then your fetch triggers resolve and give you your lands back. You can also like draw step balance them if people are used to like draw step him you. That feels really good too.
Mad. All right. Well, yeah. Tell us about some of these other interesting conclusions why they have a home. So yeah, like Search for Glory and the Soul Partition, Dawn's Truth stuff, the Moon Silver Key. Tell us about some of these.
Yeah, so Moon Silver Key is kind of a concession to the power of Zirda. This is functionally an A plus B combo deck where the A is always in your companion zone. So finding the B is like really important. Moon Silver Key finds Basalt Monolith and Grim Monolith almost every time. You can do a couple of key things, like if you already have the monoliths, you can get an Enigma Jewel as your like outlet, or a Might Stone and Weak Stone to draw cards or remove. But for the most part, it's finding those monoliths, which is very powerful. That's kind of all it's meant to do.
Like as a comparison point, because a lot of I think for example, Jazz Historical deck, right, would run like the 2-mana transmuters. Like the Shred Memories, the Muddle, the Mixtures. Is the idea that Moon Silver Key is just a card which just has more coverage in this particular deck?
Yeah, and the word artifact matters a lot for these cards. Like stuff like it taps with Zirda. It goes on the board for balance. It activates Mox Opal. There's a bunch of like micro synergies with artifacts. You can transmute for it if you need. It powers up your Urza construct. Playing critical massive artifacts is good, and in because artifact removal is so powerful, once you start playing a couple of artifacts, you kind of want to lean into it and go all in and just play ways of beating the artifact removal instead.
Yeah,
if you're going to lose to a Brotherhood's End, you might as well like completely lose to a Brotherhood's End.
I mean, that is a little counterintuitive though, right? Like some people might say, oh, I want to have a bit of resilience. Like I don't want this one card to end my game. Like what's the edge in going in for a penny and for a pound?
I guess you become a lot faster, and so you can go under it. This deck is capable of winning before they can cast it on turn 2 or 3. And then you also start to think about the way that you sideboard. And to be honest, this deck is kind of light on ways of beating Brotherhood's End, only of the single Hydroblast. Sometimes I've run, Hydro and Blue Blast to beat that card. But it plays other things to beat artifact removal. So the Surge of Salvation and the Dawn's Truce. Actually, on camera in the semi-finals, I got to Dawn's Truce a Biforce from my Storm opponent to prevent them from blowing up some of my artifacts.
Nice.
So when you kind of know that the cards that flatten you are things like Brotherhood's End, Seeds of Innocence, you can kind of like construct your sideboard to explicitly beat those cards, or just try and race them. Yeah.
Okay, so that actually tangentially answers the Surge of Salvation, Dawn's Truce questions. Out of interest then, like, because they seem quite clear against, the Seeds, Meltdowns, Brotherhood's Ends, Pulverize angle. But what about
So Dawn's Truce beats most of those. Surge of Salvation actually doesn't, because Hexproof doesn't get around them.
Okay.
Surge beats like the targeted hate. And sorry, yeah, you were talking about Kataki and Narod and things.
Yeah, you know, like that, because like, you know, one end of it is just like, yeah, the destroyer artifacts, and the other end of it is the they're on the board but they don't do anything.
So this kind of goes in nicely to a topic about sideboarding and combo decks. There's an interesting thing when you're playing combo, and I see a lot of even quite good deck builders do a thing where they put in a bunch of silver bullets in their sideboard. So I don't know, cards like their own meltdowns or their own what are other good examples?
Extract, silver bullet.
Yeah, extract and torpor orb, and these cards that kind of Grafdigger's Cage is another classic example. These are cards that are really
that's a card.
Yeah,
to
Tomic.
stop playing Tomic.
Hell yeah, I love Tomic. But yeah, these types of cards that when you play against the artifact deck or the reanimator deck or the lands deck, if you ever have the good fortune of playing against the lands deck, these are really, really powerful cards that kind of invalidate their strategy. But I take issue with that because when you're playing a combo deck like this, your plan A proactive game plan is so much better than your opponent's. Like, if you go unchecked, you win the game, like, on the spot and really, really fast. That I don't think you should put much stock into trying to stop your opponent. I think you should focus your efforts more on trying to enable your own plan and answering their answers, if that makes sense. So when I build a sideboard when I'm playing a combo deck, you won't see basically any silver bullets, and you'll see almost every card in the board is built to answer what you bring in. So cards like Into the Floodmoor has been a sideboard staple forever for me, and I'll probably play Boomerang Basics when I find a copy eventually. These like bounce spells are really good. March of Otherworldly Light. These are cards that, like, you know, they answer the hate piece. So those Katakis, those Nelrods, those Energy Fluxes. And like, I'm playing Chain of Vapor main deck in this deck, and I very rarely bring it out because it's very good in the post-board games. It also just happens to have some random utility in the pre-board games, which is why it's in the main. Stuff like bouncing your own ring to reset it, or getting some extra mana off pseudo untapping your Candelabra.
What's the card below March of Otherworldly Light?
That is Mycosynth Ladder. Sorry, no, it's different on your screen. Yeah, I sideboard Path. So, and you actually have to be careful about thinking about when you bring in cards like Submerge, Path to Exile, and Aethergust. You shouldn't just, you know, willy-nilly bring them in because your opponent's playing creatures. Stop and think about what creatures they play. If they're playing stuff like Collector Oof and Sheoldred, and cards that kind of shut you down, that's when you bring in the creature removal. If you're bringing in cards like, you know, this Aethergust or Flood or Submerge or Path against, you know, just strong creatures like Badger Cub or Fable of the Mirror Breaker or something, I don't actually think that's
Murktide, right, would
effective.
be a good example. Like, just it's a huge dude. You need part like.
Sorry, which card?
Like Murktide Regent.
Yeah, So I cut Swords to Plowshares against a lot of Grixis decks, which sounds crazy, but the creatures aren't what matters in the matchup. Like, if they play Murktide, you just combo off in their face. So Murktide is an interesting one because it's a really fast clock, but Murktide is not a particularly strong reason to me to want removal. It really is the cards that just say you can't interact. Your Archon of Emirs, your Thalias, your Deafening Clarion, or whatever that stupid dinosaur is. Those are the ones where you're like, I need removal. I need to be able to stop what you're doing. And then the cards that are just generic creatures, your plan A is so effective against those cards. Like, you can balance them into oblivion. You can just play the ring and flicker it a few times. Like, you go so far over the top, just beat down creatures, that removal is not for those matchups. The removal is for when they have creatures that beat your combo.
I have an extra question about the sideboard. It seems like the vast majority of the decks that we've featured on the pod, quote unquote, have only been playing one of the blasts, like just Hydroblast or just Pyroblast. And I don't know if I've missed the memo, but why is it that you're only playing one of this card where you've got a functional copy of it in a singleton format?
Yeah, sure. So I was playing two for a very long time, and I'm down to one now. The one is a concession to specifically Brotherhood's End. As I've kind of said, there are very few ways in this deck of beating that card. But I've also seen the number of copies of Brotherhood's End start to decrease. A lot of the Grixis decks are no longer playing the card. They've moved on to like By Force or Meltdown or something that my Dawn's Truce and Surge of Salvation can answer. So I bring it in a lot less against Grixis. I think that blasts are less effective against these kind of multicolored decks, like your Jund and your Grixis, because they've thought super hard already about the existence of blasts. Grixis is a deck that sideboards in 4 blasts. They are hyper aware of the effectiveness of blue and red blast, and if you look at their creature suite and the specific cards that they've chosen, you'll find that they actually play really effectively against blasts. Most of their red cards are in the form of things like Kori Steelcutter, or cards that are just super efficient like DRC, where you're not even going up on mana, or you're not getting a huge advantage by blasting that. It's just kind of a speed bump for them. And they play cards like your Dalthies and your Barragoyfs and your black cards that don't get blasted. So I think that both Grixis and Jund are actually playing in ways that make blasts worse. Blasts are really good, but they're at their best against cards like Goblins and Mono Red, which I found are matchups that I'm already very favoured into, so I don't need to over-index on the board against them.
That's actually a really useful insight. Although speaking of Brotherhood's End, in the Run It Back event, I was playing the person to my left was playing an artifact deck, and their opponent said, "I know you're gonna hate me, but I'm actually playing this card in main board," and slams Brotherhood's End on the table. And they kind of leaned forward, and like their eyes like bulged from their head, kind of like in a cartoon.
Yeah, I'm probably dropping from the event after that happens. Yeah. That's insane. I remember talking to a reanimated player going, "I've just been Nihil Spellbomb main decked all day. This is horrible."
Correct.
It's a bad day when that starts to happen.
And I do have another question that's a bit of a follow-up to our original video with you, where you said, one of the advantages of playing combo is you basically 100% win game 1, and then game 2 they bring in all the hate, and then you probably lose that, and then because you're on the draw, etc. And then game 3, you get to be on the play again, and you likely win. This was also echoed by Richard in the Storm pod as well. With that in mind, why is it that you're playing a card like Gemstone Cavern's main board, which might be a hindrance to you, 50% of the time in game 1, which is so favoured to win anyway?
Yeah, sure. So I 100% agree with all of that. Maybe 100% to win game 1 is a bit of an exaggeration, but it's definitely true that you're much favoured, and these are the style of decks that crush game 1. So I was playing Gemstone Cavern in the side for a really long time, and then I just paused and looked at myself and thought about exactly what you just said, and realised I'm so favoured to win game 1, even on the draw. Even on the play or draw. It doesn't matter if I have this useless Gemstone Cavern main deck. But sideboard slots are so valuable in these types of lists. Like, every single sideboard slot is super important. And losing one is really costly. This is why, Khan is such a powerful card, but I thought many times about cutting the Khan because he takes up like 5 sideboard slots, which is a really big burden. He's just so powerful by himself that I think you should play it, but it's thinking about that's important. But anyway, so the Gemstone Cavern main deck is a concession to that sideboard slot's power. So I've realized that if I'm on the play, having a Gemstone Cavern main deck doesn't matter at all to me, basically. I'm still so favored that it's okay to have a slightly worse land, but the cost of having it in my board to only bring in game 2 is so high that I'd rather it just be in my main to save a sideboard slot. And that way, when I win game 1, hopefully, it's already there for game 2. So there's one less card I have to find room for to bring in.
That's really intelligent. Thank you.
Yeah, it also goes, down a card for balance too, which is pretty funny. It is funny at CanCon, actually. I got super lucky in the Swiss. I won the die roll 6 out of 6 times, so Gemstone Cavern main deck looked a little foolish, but it was really good in the post-board games.
That's just how you win. Win every die roll.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Yeah,
but,
now
I don't know. Someone blessed me that day.
The secret to getting the quarterfinals is winning every die roll and then just be a GRV machine.
All the
way
sure.
through. Yeah.
My God, I felt so bad at watching that game back. I'm so sorry to all the judges and people involved. It was terrible.
Could you explain to us the utility of Gitaxian Probe in the deck, please?
Yeah, sure. So this is a card that I never cut.
No.
At
Sorry,
the very
I meant the utility of Gitaxian Probe in the quarterfinal.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, well, it was like, man, how is looking at your opponent's hand when you're playing combo useful? Max is like, okay, ironically, this is a real question.
yeah. So we played the top 8 on the Sunday, so I had a full day of rest. That evening I actually got a pretty good sleep. I had written down extensive sideboard guards for every possible matchup and written down every single card in all of my opponent's 75s that could possibly hurt me. And I rock up to the first game of the quarterfinals ready to go. I open the game by going, pay to life, Gitaxian Probe target you, draw a card, I'll look at your hand, I'll write all the cards down, make sure everything's sorted. You can pick up your hand now, and I'll draw a card off my Gitaxian Probe. And then my opponent goes, how many cards do you have in hand? I go, 8, oops, judge. And then my opponent gets the Thoughtseize my Mana Vault out of my hand. Game 1 of the quarterfinals, like the first game action I take.
But don't worry, you're 100% favored in game 1, so you actually...
I still won that game against my Grixis opponent, so there you go.
BM.
Oh my god. Oh, I'm so sorry to Simon. It was such a lovely opponent, and I just made a mockery of the whole game.
I mean, I suppose in many ways, it is just one of these things. It is a lot of pressure when you're in these these quarterfinal of CanCon environments and stuff. People do make mistakes, and it is a good moment to reflect that. Look, we're all human. Mistakes get made, but we just do our best to just if judges give solutions, you follow the solutions and you just play on. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, a huge shout out to Bruins as well for handling that judge call. That was a really messy one, and I think he did it, extremely well, and was very measured and patient with everyone at the table and the spectators, trying to make sure that we got a good solution for everyone. I was really, really impressed by the way he handled that. That was awesome.
Yeah, Brewer's a legend. Always comes with a smile on his face. It's just it's hard to get all angry and annoying when Brewers do.
Yeah. So it's that calm temperament just.
Was he the head judge this
Sorry.
time?
Yeah, CanCon, yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, I didn't catch his name when they did the briefing, but yeah, he was excellent every time he came to the table.
Yeah.
All right, I'm still looking for I'm still searching for the Search for Glory rationale. It could just be it's just a tutor, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
Is it any more complicated than that?
You gain a life when you use a snow-covered island to cast it, so we're already in the money. But for real, there are a lot of cards in this deck that are legends by surprise. Tolarian Academy is a legend. Inventor's Fair and Abstergo Entertainment are both legends. Tezzeret and Karn are legends, as is the One Ring, Enigma Jewel, Mightstone, and Weakstone. So there's kind of a huge range of things you can get. 90% of the time you're getting either Academy or Ring, depending on if you need mana or cards. I will say that it is less powerful in this list than in Tolarian Wheels, because in Tolarian Wheels you could also get Urza's Saga, which was a really common play pattern to beat control. But I found it still pretty good. It is one of the first cards, along with Fabricate, that I reach to cut when I'm sideboarding, because these are slower tutors that are less useful when your opponent has a bunch of hate and a bunch of opposition agents in their deck. You don't really want to be dirtling around to get your ring when your opponent has so many answers to artifacts. But it's got really good utility in finding a bunch of these key pieces.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And the other
and
one,
your opponent has to read the card every time you cast it, which is just a good feeling too. That's important.
Yeah. Another one which I'm wondering about is why cards. I mean, there's a few ones which I've got written down don't make it. So one might be some of those the classic 2-mana transmuters, but I feel we've kind of answered that you're just running stuff like Moonsilver Key and Search for Glory instead.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wonder what about Mishra's Workshop? I feel like that card could add a lot of mana in this deck. And stuff just Spell Skite or Whir of Invention or something. There's more kind of classic I protect my artifact based combo, or I tutor it up at instant speed type cards.
Sure. So for Mishra's Workshop, I was playing it for a while. I am in the fortunate position of being able to test one. But if you actually look at the colorless pips on all the artifacts, you'll see that there are actually only a handful that are good to cast. The monoliths are great, Mightstone and Weakstone and the One Ring. And then maybe Moonsilver Key is okay. So there's really only about 5 cards that you're actually excited to cast off Workshop. And even then, some of those are does it really matter if you're ramping out a Mightstone and Weakstone? I guess that's pretty reasonable, but it's not the end of the world. It's not winning you the game on the spot. And so, ramping up Monoliths and the Ring is insane. That's extremely powerful. But the hands that you already have access to Monoliths and Ring, you're already like in a really good shape. So Workshop and Testing felt very win more to me. It's a powerful card, but I think you want to be playing a slightly different configuration where you're leaning on cards like perhaps, your Cityscape Levelers and your Mystic Forges, and just going a bit bigger. When you do go a bit bigger, you can start to leverage cards like Kozilek's Command and Ugin Eye of Storms. So I think there's definitely a list that could play it. You can then also start playing cards like Thran Dynamo, or what's the Worn Power Stone? No, what's the card that enters tapped and taps for 2?
That's Worn Power Stone, yeah.
Yeah, Worn Power Stone. Yeah, these cards can let you go a little bit bigger if you want, but I found that I had access to so much mana in most of my games it wasn't super necessary, and I'd rather play like removal and cantrips to smooth out my draws. For Spellskite and Welding Jar, these are common like Karnboard cards or good sideboard cards. I found that I wasn't super afraid of one-shot artifact removal, like your Colligan's Commands or your Abrupt Decays. Those types of cards are alright against Zirda, but the fact that okay, they're quite good against Zirda, to be honest. They hit both your monoliths, which does stop you in your tracks. But I found that I had enough kind of resiliency in my Abstergo entertainment loops and my Enigma Jewel backup plan that I didn't really want this type of dead card. And I was very rarely fetching it. Your mileage might vary. If you play against a lot of one-shot artifact removal, I definitely consider those as sideboard options.
Yep. Okay. And the very last thing I was wondering about is just why not black? Like it's so classic for combo decks to play like hand hate. You know what I mean? Like whereas this is like blue white. It's not a common combo configuration. So have you considered running the Thoughtseize Inquisition thing, or is it just not where the deck's at?
Yeah, sure. So this also leans into the Wear of Invention question too, and that the mana in this deck is really, really bad. It looks alright because you're only a 2-color deck, but trying to cast both Transmute and Zirda, while you're already playing a bunch of utility lands like Abstergo Entertainment, Fomori Vault, Minamo, Teleria West, Odawara, Inventor's Fair, like these cards, actually, City of Traders, these cards really, really take up a lot of room in your mana. And I'm the type of person that anytime I draw a hand that has a slight mana hiccup, I'm like, okay, the deck has fundamentally failed me. Like, I need to go back to the drawing board and think really carefully about my mana. Because if I lose like a single game due to not having the right colors of mana, I'm like, there's something wrong with my construction. I need to make sure this doesn't happen. So I'm hyper aware of that whenever it happens. And so I think that adding an extra color stretches the mana base too far. And I would start cutting cards like Fomori Vault, Inventor's Fair, City of Traders. And at that point, like I think that the power bump you gain from playing these utility lands, particularly as a deck that makes so much mana and really wants their lands to be mana outlets, I think that you give up too much. Zirda is a legitimately hard card to cast in this deck. I've often had my opponents like Blood Moons suddenly switch on my ability to play Zirda because my land suddenly tap for red, which is pretty funny. But finding double white is really hard, and I've started adding cards like Pentad Prism and Jeweled Amulet to turn 1 white into 2 white, so that you can actually get to Zirda.
Very cool. Well, look, this list has been really interesting, and we've got a little bit of time left on the pod. And since you're our first return guest, I'd like to give you a chance to defend some of your statements that you made in the original podcast and subsequently in public point discussion. So I've got a couple of quotes up here. Now, you're not bound by them, but for example, one of them I've got listed here is, the existence of Breach at 3 means that I will never play Oracle Vault and am now unlikely to ever play Tez or Vault. As a combo win condition is at least 2 points less than comparable engines, and therefore that means I can't justify any other payoff, heavily restricting the strategies I want to play. Breach is so oppressive in the combo space still, I can't justify playing anything else over it. Now, what I'd like to ask is, given your performance at CanCon and the composition of the top 8, including a Breach deck, a winning Thoracle deck, and a Storm deck, is this an example... 2
Thoracle decks, so 2 Thoracle decks at the top 8, Liam.
Is this an example of you being proven right, or you being proven wrong?
So, I still stand by the statement. I still stand that Breach is way underpointed and more people should just play this list. I also stand by the statement that Time Vault and Oracle are cards I'm unlikely to play. I actually will be sleeving up Oracle for next weeklies, so I'm going to eat my words a little bit there. And I think Oracle is a much stronger deck than I gave it credit for. It was being held back a lot by Grixis, and I think it's a really smart choice now. That being said, I still think that the combination of Breach Intuition is at least a point, if not two, lower than comparable A plus B engines, particularly ones that are a single card to tutor for, and ones where almost every card in the combo stands alone as powerful with the exception of LED. I don't think that there are other combos that are like that. And I do think that it stifles my interest in playing cards like Time Vault and Flash. Because every time I sleeve those cards up, I'm like, what if I just cut all the bad cards and played Breach, LED, Brain Freeze and won some games?
And as a conclusion of that, do you think those other pointed combos should go down in points, or do you think Breach should go up in the context of the combo ecosphere?
No, not at all. Time Vault potentially, just because it's so soft to artifact hate, but like it's an expensive card and it's not really fun to play against, so it can stay at 4, whatever. Oracle is fine at 4. I would like, points to go off Spellseeker onto something else because the card's really cool, but Time Walk is scary. But I think these are all fairly pointed. I think the sentence I keep coming back to is I don't want my combo decks to win. I just want Breach to lose. And that really sums up my philosophy of I think Breach is just like too grossly efficient. I just don't like Breach very much. I don't know. It's a cool card to have respect for the pilots, but I don't like how tight of a package it is. Like it's too efficient for 3 points.
It's funny. Well, like Liam was saying to me before the podcast, we should challenge Max on some of his statements he's made about other combo decks, and I was like, oh yeah, I do remember Max saying Thoracle is dead now. Well, I didn't realize that Liam would be busting out like the most extreme quote that you've ever made in public points discussion.
This is not the most extreme quote. I had another one written down, which leads with "I will die on this hill." Okay, so
really?
I chose the moderate one for Maxi.
Look, I'll stand behind it. Look, the spectacle of public points means that you need to exaggerate your views a little bit to be heard. I believe. So like, there's a little bit of hyperbole in some of these, but and like huge ups to Juzza and to I think Maya was the other player in the top 8 with Thoracle. They did really well with the list, and I think definitely gave me some pause, and I'm going to try out Oracle now for sure. So I think Oracle is a lot better than I gave it credit for. I'll definitely, eat some humble pie on that one. But I'm not backing down on how good Breach is at the moment. People just should play that deck. It's crazy.
Well, let's not forget, you have a lot of experience playing Oracle. It's not like you were just, criticizing it from the bleachers. You've played this deck a lot at weeklies, Doomsday versions, non-Doomsday versions, Grixis versions. So it's they were informed opinions. They weren't just bleating like most of the comments in public points discussion.
I think the Doomsday is where the personal hurt is coming in, because I really like playing that card. And Gush being 2 points, Spellseeker being a point, I don't think it's stomachable. I think the Tinker LED is where you want to be. Sorry, Tinker Lotus is where you want to be if you're playing Doomsday, and that kind of stings a bit that you can't play Doomsday Thoracle in the format, or it's much harder to justify, and I haven't seen many people having success with it.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have any other closing, before we close out the episode, do you have any other format thoughts or things you want to leave on?
No, I think the format's in a pretty good spot. I do have a list of hilarious cards that are legal with Zirda. Might be fun to go with.
Give us the top
cards that
3.
surprisingly have activated abilities. So you are allowed to play and Companion Zirda, Mystic Forge, Bolus's Citadel, Cityscape Leveler, Vexing Bauble, the entire Thopter Sword package, and the entire Bomberman, Oswald, Goblin Engineer, Goblin Welder, LED, Pirate Spellbomb combo are all perfectly legal to play in Zeta and are cards that I've thought about. So there's lots of room to explore with this really sweet card.
And they're legal because they have activated abilities, right?
That's correct, yeah. There's a surprise activated ability on Bolus's Citadel, which never comes up, and there's one on Mystic Forge too. Unearth is activated for the Leveler. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Sorry, I was trying to make a dry humor joke, and now I just look like an idiot for not...
Oh, sorry about that. It's good.
No, well, look, Max, thanks for coming on, and thanks for being, our first ever return guest. And look, we can't wait to see what the next crazy combo is.
Thanks so much, guys. Delighted to be here. Really appreciate it. It's fabulous.
All right, and listeners, if you would like to be on the pod, or if you've got a deck of your own, you've had some success with
Mouse
something
just said
that.
the pod.
Oh my God, I said it as well. I've been inceptioned. Lime, how could you do this to me? Yeah, so if you've got like an archetype you've got a lot of experience with, something unique, or you've enjoyed success in a tournament field, please feel free to reach out to Liam and I. And please feel free to follow us on Spotify or YouTube, where these things inevitably end up. Thanks everyone for joining us.